For our creative activity today, I have to thank Cathy Jones because this is an exercise which she uses in her class in LIT. And so basically this is a personal development and reflection piece with a social enterprise twist. So in a few minutes I will ask each person to go up to the top of the room, pick a photograph, choose a photograph which you like, okay? Choose a photograph that you like, a personal choice. Then afterwards you're going to be divided up into groups of 3 or 4 and go to different parts of the room. And once you have done that, you will have to answer a number of questions. First question is, what has been depicted in the photograph? So that's a very basic question. Then we're going to move on. What social issues are evident? Or that could be also interpreted as like it might be directly evident, it could be indirectly evident. So it's up to you to think about that. The next question is, how can social enterprise resolve the social issue or problem? The next question is, who is responsible? For solving. So you have to basically identify a person or an organization or a group. Okay, this is where you have to think about carefully, or a social, you have to identify the relevant stakeholder who play a prominent role in resolving the social problem, or enacting or enabling the social activity, the social enterprise to develop or flourish. So this is basically these are the number of questions which I want you to answer. This exercise could be expanded much more further, creating a much longer list of actions that could be implemented. So it's very important that at the beginning of a social enterprise, or also throughout its duration, that we're continuously asking questions. We're continuously profiling the beneficiaries who we have to work with. So profiling, and profiling can occur through quantitative measures, through analysing statistics from government or from local authorities or municipalities, but it can also be a qualitative exercise where we ask series of questions and engage in group discussions. So first of all, you're going to answer these questions in relation to your own photograph, but it's also very important to communicate your responses with other people. So that's why you're in groups of 3. So I'll give you about 15 minutes to answer these, about 10 to 15 minutes to answer these questions. Then you spend about 10 minutes speaking to your relevant group. Afterwards then, we will report back about the process and how this activity could be refined into the future. Okay, that is the plan of action. So I invite everyone here to go and choose a suitable card, the one that you like most.
As you laugh.
Questions individually first for 10 minutes, and then you share your responses afterwards. Okay, do you think about it personally first?
Take notes inside the group.
You should take note. it's an internal dialogue amongst the group. I will be taking notes back afterwards on how it could be refined.
So no notes.
And then we come together and chat.
And then get together with a group.
I've given you about 5-10 minutes there of sitting down, writing. So I want to let you talk to your neighbours and discuss your answers with each other and see how you could, as working in little groups, how you can refine your answers as well.
They're looking at something here, isn't it? Compared to the... I suppose,
I might halt proceedings here now for a few minutes and thank you for all of your cooperation. Everybody in all of your groups seems to have had a very detailed discussion. Now, this is optional, so if some people here would like to share their story that has been that you have developed from that photograph. If you have first of all come up with your own ideas about how to answer these questions. Hopefully those ideas have been refined by communicating in little groups together, so you might have gotten a more broader context. And the ideas developed have been enriched, and therefore you might have a more holistic overview of the thought process now. So therefore, if anyone here would like to share their story related to their picture, I'd be most grateful.
These are the photos that Laura and I chose. Laura chose the one with the dog and I chose the one with the boat. Okay, I just need to get my notes. We're actually looking at the photos. I think we both picked them for quite personal reasons. I think Dana said this as well. This probably reminds me of South Anglesey looking across at Snowdonia. The snow reminds me of Luton, but enough about that. So we felt in terms of what's been depicted in the photos, both were really quite similar. They were really rural areas, and I think that brought to us the idea of isolation, how people, livelihoods. Mine's got the fishing boat on it, those kind of seaside, lochside communities maybe struggling in terms of, especially younger people moving back to the cities. That people were maybe alone. That's what we felt, wasn't it? The dog, we felt, maybe symbolised that it needed somebody, it needed a network, it needed support, and that's what we were looking at. In terms of how could social enterprise resolve some of these sort of isolation issues, I thought, Shane, about the Lochmore tea rooms when I saw those, about the community working together, local products, particularly we've been looking at seafood, gastronomy in terms of social enterprise cafes, restaurants. I think that was, maybe something around tourism that could be used. In terms of who's responsible, individuals, the community, sometimes with local authority support. I mean, I'm speaking from what I see around the Wrexham area. Maybe regional, national government, regional programmes, which I've seen have come through in many of your interviews. particularly strong here in Poznan, I think, from what I've read in those interviews. But also people like us, educational providers. The next round of the research, the REF as we call it, is looking at how universities are having an impact on their communities, that we're not just sitting there maybe teaching students something, that we're actually getting out and talking to communities about what we're doing. And I think, you know, what we've been doing with Wrexham Social Enterprise Network and telling them about SEDET and what we've been up to, I think that's really, you know, they're coming to us with issues and are we interested in this? Can we talk about this? And I think, you know, we have a role as education providers to be involved in those solutions as well. So to sum it up, Laura? Yeah.
It's about woman. It's a happy woman. She learned some things. She returned to learning and she is happy. What social issues are evident? For me, it's stereotypes about women roles. It's less opportunity to improve the woman's skills. How can she resolve to the social issue problem? Maybe develop to the training course for women to middle age. Usual role to middle-aged woman is housekeeper, moms, and is a problem in Romania and another country. Who is responsible for solving the problem? Authority, individual, us. Thank you.
Well, I will tell you the story of a particular place in Romania. I bet Shane was there 15 years ago and had this photo, because this is exactly a photo from a place in Romania, how it looked like 15 years ago. And this is history, because this is gone. The same place these days is very affluent, is entirely controlled by various touristic companies, which don't allow you to have a fire in the sand near the beach, which don't allow you to fish, which are advertising their touristic programs. It's full of chaiselongs and umbrellas, and it doesn't look as it was. And I know the place from 15 years ago. It's the place where I go every year. And I witnessed how it changed. It's exactly the opposite of Sarah's story. This was not an isolated area. This was somehow advertised as being very popular, very hippie, very non-formal. You could find the freedom in here. What happened in 10 years was that freedom was gone. It became chaotically touristic, exploited in the main ugly sense of exploitation. It is a natural reservation. Now, 3 years ago, they discovered that underneath there are gases, schist gases. Yeah, and we had to sign various petitions to not to transform this area into, I don't know, gas field, yeah. There is a foundation, there is an NGO that started from the people like me and others who like the place. I guess they are active for more than 10 years. It's called Save this place, which is Vama Veche. It's the last village before Bulgaria. And I participated in their campaigns. I signed their petitions. I go there every summer. I do the rubbish collection with other volunteers. I do voluntary work for them, and I support them with little money. We try to save what is still left, but to tell you the truth, is not much left as it was, because there was no local plan of preserving, no no vision of sustainable development. Everything developed in a very chaotic and in a very private way. People just bought land there and decided to build without thinking of any of the consequences that the facilities are not in there. So there's constant problem these days with the lights, with the plumbing, because it's suffocated. There are too many people for the little facility that exists. And local authority, as always, react very, very slow and only on very high and even aggressive pressure. I have been, maybe I think 5 or 6 years ago, in front of the city council of that area, who handles this city, protesting with other tourists. This was during our holiday, but I liked doing it, because after that the mayor accepted to renounce to a project that meant to bring concrete on all the streets in this village, because this village is still not having concrete. It's earth, and we like it in this way. It doesn't matter if when it rains it gets muddy. It's how we know it, and he decided to respect our will. But in terms of who is responsible, of course we are responsible, but there are very little things that citizens can do if they don't have the support of the at least local authority, when it's a question of the local place, the common local environment, because there are a lot of people concerned, and including inhabitants, concerned about the future of Vama, but because they could not do anything in a legal support, they just watched how these bad changes happen. In Romania, we are learning now how to be a civil society. If you follow the news, there are constant protesting, for example, started from the civil society. Now there is a question of who this civil society is. Yes, it may be driven by other forces, who knows? But what I know is that when I go and protest, it's not because somebody is manipulating me, but because I believe in something. It's happening, and it was not happening 10 years ago. Now it's happening more and more, and I think this is a good thing, because this means that citizens become more involved in what happens from all points of view, political, social, economical.
I think as well, from the interviews at Cube and Redu. Sorry. From the interviews that you and Manuela did in Romania with Cube and Redu, it really came across that environmental awareness really growing.
We are one of the last countries in Europe who does not have a real effective program of recycling and selective collection of rubbish. We have this problem, and we pay huge money to the European Union because we do not collect the rubbish in a selective way. There were a lot of money invested actually in facilities to help this, but they are not functioning because of the Romanian probably corrupted system. And this is actually an urgent issue to solve at national level. To move on the next level on caring about environment in a more deep way, yes, but we are still there. We collect our rubbish all together and we dump it in holes, like in Middle Age.
Thank you very much, Dana, for that contribution. It shows us as well that social enterprise has a very strong sustainability dimension and promoting environmental awareness. I think some of my interviews in Ireland, that dimension did not come across as acutely as in Romania. I think that's something that we need to be conscious of too, that social enterprises play a very important role in in promoting environmental conservation and environmental awareness.
This is a very difficult photograph to see even when you have it this close. So I will pass it round. It's the same sort of issue, but when you get the photograph, it's very difficult to work out. But just on one side, as I'll mention it in a minute, one side here there is clearly a stake in the ground, and there appears to be some sort of rope. I'll mention that in a moment. I understand, I was nearly right. Shane corrected me as to exactly where it is, but it's County Kerry, and it's the Skerries. Yeah. Skerry.
Skellig.
Yeah.
St. Michael's Rock.
Okay. Right. St. Michael's Rock. Okay. The issue could be seen as one of health and safety. But the issue actually is rather similar to that Dana's just been talking about. This is a very popular area. It has a very, very large number of tourists. And they are, as you can see there, they're not particularly well dressed for climbing rocks. It's a popular place and people go there. It has not been damaged in the way that Dana described, has happened randomly. But Dana and I have also got experience of another place, Capo Vaticano, in southern Italy, where exactly the same things have happened. We know from the locals that the sort of natural world that still seems to exist there in County Kerry has been completely damaged by uncontrolled development. So this raises an issue of not being controlled, but how much control do you put on? Because that's what's being depicted, people climbing over some rocks. What social issues are evident? Well, there's an issue about health and safety. That it does not look a particularly safe thing to do. Well, the question going to the next one, how does it resolve? That's the nub of the question, because if you made that place safe, you would destroy it. So do you stop people going up? I said I'd mention the stake at the side. There is clearly some effort been made, evident in that photograph, to protect people as they are going up so they don't fall off the side. Looks like there's a line running down from the stake to stop people falling off. But it's a major problem that we face with any natural place like this. What do we do about it? We have in North Wales every weekend a helicopter that circles the highest hill in England and Wales. It's on constant standby because people climb. It's over 1,000 meters, and frequently, usually when they're coming down the hill, they fall off and they die. Now, do you stop people doing that? That's the issue. How does a social enterprise deal with this? Well, in our mountain areas, we have people who volunteer as mountain rescue. We also have social enterprises, I happen to be involved in one, that are concerned with the state of the path. We all of us, we were talking about this in the group. We shared this experience because we stood on Offa's Dyke, and memorably, Juan Carlos fell over on the slope. Those of you who were there may remember. Yeah? And I took a picture of Kathy standing by the posts because it was in English and Welsh and it's regarded as a boundary line. This is not a particularly dangerous place, but it requires this same issue, as Dana's raised, requires this issue of conservation. So there is an organisation called Offa's Dyke Association, and it is primarily concerned with it would be concerned with health and safety issues, but it's primarily concerned with making sure that the thing is conserved properly and is available as a tourist resort. So it promotes it as well. It encourages people to come to the area to spend their money. So it's doing two things, looking after the historic monument and encouraging tourism. Who is responsible for solving the problem? Well, I think we come back to the usual We've got local authorities, we've got governmental agencies, and they are more responsive in the UK than they are in Romania. But that's because they developed over years. It's taken a long time to get groups like ours, Sarah's now County Council, to acknowledge that they need to take action. But we do have the law on our side. Access to certain rights of way is the duty of the County Council to maintain. And there was a judgment in 1974 between Worcester County Council and a member of the public, and the judgment in law was that county councils were responsible for footpaths as well as roads. And before that time, it was not clear, but that's 40 years ago that happened. It's always a battle. The battle goes on, and it's in other places, but it's still in our areas.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, you know, from what you've just talked about and what we saw in Bishop's Castle, and, you know, that if we're likening that maybe to social enterprise, and, you know, the name of yours, Pathways, implies to me that climb, that pathway, that journey that social enterprises are on and never ends. Sometimes it's steep. Sometimes, like when we got to the top of Offarsdyke, it was flat. Some of us had issues still. But, you know, I think in terms of, you can use that kind of analogy to...
We've taken the issue to be maybe unsustainable use of fuel or timber resources. No matter what you do to get the community together to conserve their forests or to preserve their environment, if you don't have a sort of some kind of state framework to prevent this being bought up by the Chinese and turned into a soybean plantation, then your social enterprise is going to be doomed in a way, potentially. You know, it's not enough. You've got to have government sanctions as well, I think.
Thank you. I might close proceedings now because I think we have had a very rich conversations. You've really interpreted in pictures in great detail. I'm very pleased with that. And afterwards, when you turn off the microphone here, we can have it. If this exercise needs to be refined further for its inclusion in IO3, I will be happy to take feedback. So, if anybody has any other questions, I'll take them now. So I think we'll halt proceedings now. Thank you.